One, Kamala has a beer. And while one of the worst hurricanes in recorded history bears down on Florida, a wonderful illustration of leadership by Ron DeSantis. Two, are we already experiencing the October surprise with former Chief of Staff of the Department of Defense, Kash Patel? And three, I want together, you and me, the Willisha, to invent a new sports league. A bottom-up, grassroots, English football style, new sports league for America. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. Terrestrial radio market to market, Dallas and Houston, up to Pennsylvania and New York, across to California, but always on demand by simply subscribing at Spotify or on Apple. Or join us every Monday through Thursday live at 12 o'clock Eastern Time on YouTube. Subscribe to The Will Cain Show. Kamala has a beer, and she chose Miller High Life. Boys in New York, Willisha, I ask you, if somebody invited you on to national television and said, let's have a beer, it is the infamous beer test. You want to elect a president with whom you could have a beer. And you were invited to have that one beer. What's your order?
Michelob.
Stephen Colbert said that he asked Kamala Harris ahead of time, what beer would you like? And so Miller High Life was the choice, and Miller High Life was what was presented. What would be the beer you would ask for? Now, you have to be honest. Don't run it through a focus group and don't try to win a few extra electoral votes. What would you pick quickly around the horn? What is your request? What do you order?
Michelob.
James.
Michelob.
Michelob Ultra?
Yeah. I don't know there's any others.
Wow.
That's what I don't think there is. Like, whatever happened to regular Michelob? Like, did that at one point in time there was a regular Michelob, right? And now all we have is Michelob Ultra. So okay, you're going low carb. I see. It's very manly. Two-a-days.
Okay.
What would you order for your beer?
I'm Miller Lite all day. Can't deny it. Simple.
Yeah. Tinfoil.
I'm not a beer guy. I like hard liquor. But if I had to pick a beer, I'd probably go Miller High Life. I mean, I think it's the right move.
All right. I think you have something in common with Kamala Harris. I do not think that she... I don't think she has often had a beer. I would offer to you that this might be the first time she's ever had a Miller High Life. She said in an episode of Late Night or The Late Show with Stephen Colbert that the last time she had a beer was with Doug at a baseball game.
Fair.
Oh, wait, Miller High Life is an interesting beer. First of all, they had incredible commercials back in the day. You're a High Life man. Go ahead and have that second deviled egg. But Miller High Life is one of those beers that you're like, yes, I will have a Miller High Life. Somebody orders it to me. That sounds great. And the first couple sips, you're like, this is awesome. Like, why don't we order Miller High Life more often?
Really?
This is, and everybody around tell like that. This is great. Yeah, we should be High Life men. But 4 or 5 sips, halfway into a Miller High Life, you remember why you don't drink Miller High Life.
But there
is it doesn't hold up through a can.
There's a trick,
It's
though.
actually-
Put a little Aperol in it, and it's really good.
No.
Are we having a race here for who can be most feminine? I mean, James is over here drinking Ultra. You're talking about putting Aperol into Miller High Life,
The proper way to have
and Patrick's a secret Democrat.
Yeah.
the proper way to have a Miller High Life is playing 240 hands. That's the only way it can really go down properly.
My
I
apologies
stand
for
by my
walking
position.
whiskey.
It's so...
Because by the time you're gone, it's like, okay.
It's such an exciting experience, the Miller High Life, that lasts all of a third of the can.
It's true.
I'm actually going to go with 2 days. My order would be Miller Lite. Now, Kamala Harris, poll tested this. This was highly calculated. This was so political. Got to win Wisconsin.
The champagne a
I guess she
beer.
could have gone with Keystone. She could have gone with Keystone and tried to nail down Pennsylvania. But she decided Wisconsin's the way to go. She went High Life. But I'm with you, Dan. It would be Miller Lite in first place. Oh, you don't have Miller Lite? Okay, I'll have a Coors Light. That's the
That's me
order
too.
of preference.
Same.
Have you ever seen
for a
the
beer.
meme where there's like 45 different like draft selections. Like you go to this place and you're all hyped up, and it's just that's great. I'll have a Coors Light.
James, we're going to need you to clear your throat. It sounds like once again you're drowning in your own vocabulary. I've seen the internet memes where they do the thing where they put all the beers behind a hidden box, and then they have straws coming up, and you have to guess which is which. And I've always said this, that I think every guy acts like it, but very few could pass a blind taste test differentiating Coors Light, Miller Lite, and Bud Light.
You should try that.
I think Bud Light tastes very different than the other two, and I don't enjoy its unique flavor. It has nothing to do with politics. So I think I could isolate Bud Light, but I think Miller and Coors would be a roll of the dice. But Kamala ordered Miller High Life. Let's get into that. And a historic hurricane headed for Florida that highlights the necessity of leadership. That's story number one. Hurricane Milton is headed for Florida. It is one of the worst hurricanes on recorded record. Storm surges are expected between 12 and 15 feet. It appears that much, but not all, of Tampa Bay has been evacuated. The current projected path, and I spent some time last night watching the Weather Channel, is that it might hit directly south of Tampa around Sarasota. Now, 12 to 15 feet of storm surge is absolutely incredible, and I have to give credit to CNN and a few other organizations that have used modern technology and graphics to show us exactly what that looks like when the storm surge raises, when it raises to 3 feet, when it raises to 6 feet. Now cars are floating down the roadway. First floors are uninhabitable. But 12 to 15 feet is almost incomprehensible. But amidst this potential doom, I do think we had a wonderful example of a very big need in America, and that is leadership. Leadership by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. I watched DeSantis last night on the Weather Channel, and he conducted a 10-minute interview talking about logistics, clearing debris from Hurricane Helene that can turn into projectiles during Hurricane Milton. He was absolutely versed in the direction of the storm, the severity of the storm, the risks of the storm. Very, very, very impressive is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. I happened to have tweeted that out last night, and I am a little bit taken aback by the response. Big response. Oh, yeah? Well, you and the other clowns only wanted Trump. You didn't want this style of leadership. Well, you, calling me all sorts of expletives, made fun of Ron DeSantis' boots. I'm a little surprised at the level of fandom, and I don't mean that in appreciation or respect of his leadership, but fandom in the terms of turning politics into professional sports that exist out there among, I guess, the DeSantis bros. And I think, they're just having trouble holding a couple of thoughts in their head at the same time. Those thoughts are as follows. I truly believe, by the way, that he was wearing lifts in his boots. I don't care, secondarily, that he would wear lifts in his boots. I think he is an incredible governor, and I think he would make an incredible president. But fourthly, I think you have to be able to understand that there's a difference between governing and being a politician. We can like or dislike this fact, but it is a reality of life. Getting elected to the presidency is a prerequisite to being a good president. And I think there is. And again, I don't hold pom-poms in this. I'm just telling you what I truly believe to be true. I think that he has serious limitations appealing politically on a national stage to acquire the job that he would do incredibly. That's just a matter of objective analysis. It may be wrong. I'll be happy to have been proven wrong if he ever wins the Republican nomination and a general election for president. But I can believe he is an incredible leader. I think there are a lot of incredible leaders. I think none more, perhaps, on display during moments of crisis than Ron DeSantis. But being an incredible leader only means you would do a job well, but it doesn't mean you're capable of getting the job. But when you're waving pom-poms and still butthurt about something that was said, and was true, some 6 months ago, you've lost sight of the reality of the situation. But the important point for today is that while a crisis of historic proportions faces Florida, Florida is at least blessed with not just competent, but perhaps some of the best leadership in America. It's leadership, by the way, that's been acknowledged by the President of the United States. When Vice President Kamala Harris has said that Ron DeSantis is playing politics and won't accept her call, DeSantis has said, I don't need to talk to Harris. I've never received a call from Harris. We've had numerous hurricanes over the last 3.5 years. She has no role, and I'm talking to her boss. Here is Joe Biden, the President of the United States, on Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
The governor of Florida has been cooperative. He said he's gotten all that he needs. I talked to him again yesterday, and I said, I said, no, you're doing a great job. It's all being done well. We thank you for it. And I literally gave my personal phone number to call.
That is Joe Biden saying that Ron DeSantis is doing an incredible job. That's led some to believe, is Joe Biden, is he sabotaging Kamala Harris? Does he harbor ill will about being replaced by Kamala Harris? It's pointed out that last Friday he had an impromptu, unscheduled, and extremely rare, I think the first of his administration, surprise press conference while she was conducting a televised campaign event. Is he undercutting Kamala Harris? I don't think that to be true. I think we can all still remember that Joe Biden is not with it. He is not on top of his game. And complimenting DeSantis probably didn't go through a political filter. It was simply, I am president, we have a crisis, he's a good governor. I don't think Joe Biden is undercutting Kamala Harris purposefully. I do think that last Friday press conference is odd to have done. Walk out there, take questions, having never done so before, during a moment of spotlight for Kamala Harris. But I don't think this reveals some big undercurrent. Maybe a lack of enthusiasm. Maybe he's not all in on Kamala, but I don't think he's sabotaging Kamala Harris. This morning on the call, ahead of time for the Will Cain Show, the boys in New York all were adamant to me that they understood Ron DeSantis in a way that I don't. And they talked about their buddies. You guys said, and I quote, Ron DeSantis was palpable. Are you guys all standing by? I said, I don't think that word means what you think it means. Are you guys all standing by that Ron DeSantis is palpable?
You know, I kind of have the feeling that you went back and looked at the definition and are about to just smack us if we stand our ground here.
No. I looked it up in real time on our call. You guys all agreed. No, I think that's right. I've used that a lot.
He's still going
to. It's had to have been said on air like 1,000 times.
I'm still going to use it because I'll stand by it. I'll change the definition myself. I don't care.
Now, what do you mean? What do you three think you mean by saying
palatable?
Ron DeSantis is
Palatable. That's the word.
Oh
my God.
Oh.
Yes.
I don't care. I'm
You
not
just stumbled on the word you were looking for?
Yeah, palatable.
Oh, man.
I can't believe you thought of it.
Yes. I told you on the call, there's a word you're close to, and I couldn't come up with it either. We were all, but you guys were adamant it's palpable. By the way, no surprise, Tinfoil Pat's holding on to palpable. Palpable, which means capable of being touched. You know, like you palpitate, like if your stomach is you have a problem and a doctor goes in and what's wrong? He palpitates your stomach, he presses on it and sees what the problem is.
Yeah.
You know, you have a palpable bump on your nose, that means you can feel it. So it's a little weird for you to stick with it, Tinfoil, that you can feel Ron DeSantis. How do you feel DeSantis?
There are other definitions of the word, like easily perceptible by the mind.
Do it.
So, I mean, I think I'm sticking with it.
He's dying on this hill. He really is.
This is also, by the way, the main criticism of DeSantis, that you can't feel DeSantis, that he's a good leader but doesn't connect. But somehow he's connecting to you tangibly. You can literally feel him on your fingertips. He's palpable to Tinfoil Pat. But I'm proud of you guys.
Yes.
I'm proud of you guys in New York.
I'm so excited.
You stumbled on it. Palatable.
Palatable.
That's exactly right. For the DeSantis bros, he is the palatable version of Donald Trump.
That sounds better.
He's
like a
the
mid-level SAT
acceptable,
word.
respectable version of Donald Trump. By the way, here is, because we've talked about it, what's going on in the presidential race. Here is Kamala Harris on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, drinking some Miller High Life.
But elections, I think, are won on vibes because one of the old saws is they just want somebody they can have a beer with. So would you like to have a beer with me so I can tell people what that's like? Okay. This was... Now, we asked ahead of time because I can't just be giving a drink to the Vice President of the United States without asking. You asked for Miller High Life. You wrote Miller High Life. I'm just curious.
Okay, the last time I had beer was at a baseball game with Doug.
Okay, so cheers.
Okay, cheers.
There you go. Ooh. That tastes like the beautiful city of Milwaukee,
the
Wisconsin.
Champagne of beers.
There you go.
It's not the journalist, the quote-unquote journalist in me. It's the person with natural curiosity that wants to ask, what baseball game? Who was playing? It's like, what Glock do you own? How big's the magazine? Is it registered in California? Is that gun legal in California? I don't think she owns a Glock. I don't know if she went to a baseball game. It's all about too much of it being phony. And, again, we had a pre-show debate because Tinfoil Pat, or rather, Two-A-Days Dan runs in Brooklyn hipster circles. Still, there are many people she's resonating with. I think that she's got a problem with phoniness, a big one. And that was on display as well last night on Colbert. We debuted. I want you to enjoy. We debuted a brand new accent.
Have empathy, man.
Yes.
For the suffering of other people. Have no sense of purpose.
Have empathy, man. What was that, boys? Was that Jamaica? Was she doing Jamaica?
Irish or Jamaican?
And why?
It's one or the other. I didn't know.
And have you ever seen the movie I Love You, Man?
Yes.
It reminds me of this.
Yes.
Slap the bass big time.
What is that? You sound like a leprechaun.
No,
What is
that's
that?
a reggae guy. I just did reggae.
Doesn't sound.
Doesn't sound reggae?
No.
It sounds just like that.
Well, what's interesting is in that movie, they are also conflating Irish with Jamaican. So you sound like a leprechaun. No,
Yeah.
I'm doing Jamaica. I'm doing reggae. I think she is. I think she's doing reggae too. I think she's slapping the bass, man. I think that's what we just learned last night. Add it to the catalog. We got a whole new inventory of accents from Kamala Harris. The one commonality, all phony. But is it playing? How's she doing in the polls? Let's get into that. Plus, what does the Trump campaign see in internal polling behind the scenes about Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, and the need for leadership as we're hit with what amounts to October surprises? That's coming up with Kash Patel next on The Will Cain Show.
The world of business moves fast. Stay on top of it with the Fox Business Rundown every Monday and Friday. Fox Business reporters, anchors, and hosts will bring you beneath the stock market speculation and boardroom drama to tell you about the biggest business stories of today. Whether you're on Main Street or Wall Street, Fox Business is invested in you.
Listen to the Fox Business Rundown every Monday and Friday at foxbusinesspodcasts.com or wherever you download your favorite podcasts. We're bringing forecasting grit to the gridiron. Fox Weather is storming the field with the risk of weather impact on the hottest NFL matchups all season long, delivering unmatched insight from the leader in weather news and how the forecast could affect your favorite players. We are taking you right into the end zone with Fox Weather's exclusive weather forecasting technology and the risk of weather impact for every single game of the regular season. Listen to Storming the Field every Friday on foxnewspodcasts.com. From the Fox News Podcasts Network. Listen to the all-new Brett Baier podcast featuring Common Ground, talking to lawmakers weekly from opposite sides of the political spectrum about the issues of the day and how Americans can find common ground in a politicized world.
That's just not happening on Capitol Hill. It takes leadership, right?
Yeah, it absolutely does.
Along with all your Brett Baier favorites like the campaign, the candidates, the all-star panel, and much more. Available now at foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hurricane Milton, Hurricane Helene, crisis and leadership. Is this the October surprise? It's the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. Hit subscribe at Apple, Spotify, or on YouTube. Joining us now from North Carolina, former Chief of Staff to the Department of Defense, also the author of The Plot Against the King. He's coming to us live, by the way, as you can see for anyone watching on YouTube or Facebook or foxnews.com. On the road in North Carolina is Kash Patel. What's up, Kash?
Hey, well, it's great to be with you. I'm out here in North Carolina on the Team Trump bus tour, Trump Force 47, which is barnstorming every swing state. So I'm glad you guys were able to get me out.
Absolutely. Glad to have you on the show. Let's talk about North Carolina, though, for a minute. Let's talk about this idea of the October surprise. Liz Peek at foxnews.com wrote, "This is it. We're watching the October surprise. It actually is Hurricane Helene. It is Hurricane Milton. It is the federal government's response. It is the crisis of leadership." What do you think has been displayed here over the last couple of weeks?
A continued failure and intentional neglect to deprioritize an America First agenda. Whether you're talking about the forever wars, Israel, October 7th, just a few days ago, Ukraine, or anything else, narco traffickers, the border, we just saw Biden and Harris print $165 billion for Lebanon. And we just saw them issue another $8 billion proclamation for Ukraine. And if you can believe it, in that $8 billion is $10 million included for Ukraine natural disaster relief. And here, FEMA is not giving any money to the citizens of this country, specifically North Carolina and Georgia, where I was last week. And Kamala Harris offered a mercurial $750 per person while her DHS secretary was shopping for shoes and scarves in Georgetown while people were devastated from this hurricane. So their actions just speak loudly.
I do have some experience with this, having covered Maui, knowing deeply about that issue. I will say the 750 is FEMA's initial response. They as I believe it was Karine Jean-Pierre has pointed out, they do make loans available, more funds available over the long term. But I totally agree with you about the display of priorities, and I don't think it's unfair to posit it against what we do for Lebanon or what we do for Ukraine, or I don't think it's wrong, and I certainly don't think it's misinformation, Kash, to put it up against what we do for illegal immigrants. And, you know, I had J.D. Vance on Fox and Friends on Monday, and I said to him, okay, you guys talk about America first. America first is very important to a lot of Americans. Like, prioritize Americans. How would you do that? How do you think the Trump administration, a second Trump administration, would be able to step into something? Let's stick with North Carolina for a minute. Step into something like that and display leadership aligned with America first.
I think you saw President Trump get on the ground here before anybody else in politics, before Kamala or Joe Biden. So I think it's just an extension of that. You would immediately see a pivot like I saw when I served in the first administration, to boots on the ground here, to National Guard authorized and deployed here across the communities that needed it. And we would also be providing, through private and public assistance programs, food, water, shelter, and aid. You saw my friends in the Special Forces, Corey Mills and those guys, are doing their own Special Forces relief program, and this guy's in Congress. And he's created a small army of helicopters and road vehicles to provide relief. I mean, that's what our government's supposed to be doing. And that's what Donald Trump would do. He would find the assets needed to get to the folks that are needed. And right now, you know, Harris says it's disinformation to say there's no relief for hurricane victims. But I've just seen too many people say they're not getting anything. That's not misinformation. That's reality.
I love what you point out about Corey Mills. He's done just incredible work. You know, again, one of the things that Senator Vance said on Monday on Fox and Friends, he says, the problem is FEMA is like running natural disaster relief by the DMV. And certainly we need leadership. We need leadership that politically understands priorities, something you and I are both in agreement on, and understands literally, not just figuratively as a slogan, but literally, let's be here to serve the interests of the people who elect us and pay the taxes. Let's serve Americans first. Is there an inherent tension, Kash, in, okay, we changed leadership, that's good, but we still have to administer a lot of this through bureaucracy. FEMA is a bureaucracy, so it inevitably, regardless of leadership, ends up looking like the DMV.
Look, and that's the problem with Washington, D.C., and that's the whole point of supplanting personnel when Donald Trump's replaced, not just at the cabinet secretary level. You got to go 5, 10, 15 rungs down the order. That was the whole point of my book, Government Gangsters, which President Trump made a bestseller. It's how you drain the swamp and how you fix these institutions. Look, I'll just give you two examples that are front and center. The Secret Service reports to the DHS secretary. FEMA reports to the DHS secretary. Two of the most recent catastrophes we've had in the United States were in charge of Alexander Mayorkas. It's not neglect. It's an intentional decision in one instance to not provide President Trump with the security needs, and in another instance to not provide the American people with the funding they need. Because if you look at FEMA's own website, they've given over $500 million to illegal immigrants, FEMA, and they've given 15 to those in need of hurricane disaster relief. And then they say Congress hasn't issued the funds. That's a total lie. The funds are in FEMA's bank account. I know that, having done budgeting over at Congress and for the White House. They're sitting there. They just won't deploy it. So you need leadership and personnel that will take on an America First agenda. And that's how you get rid of the bureaucracy.
Yeah, turning to Congress and saying we can't do anything because Congress hasn't anything rings a bell. That's what they're doing that's what Kamala Harris is suggesting when it comes to illegal immigration. We rescind executive orders, numbers quadruple. Now we can't do anything about it unless we get action from Congress. How about you do the things that you undid? How about you use executive orders? By the way, like you've done in the last 6 months, with an election in front of us that shows you have the power to do it. Why didn't you do that for 3.5 years? Do you think, Kash, okay, inside a campaign, there's got to be at least some discussion. What's going to happen? Everybody talks about the October surprise. It's a little bit of a cliche, but, you know, is this it? Like, are these natural disasters sort of the thing that no one can project that comes along that can change a presidential election? Or rather, what I'd be really curious about internally, are you guys expecting some other kind of October surprise, a Hunter Biden laptop, whatever it may be, some other kind of October surprise?
Well, look, these natural disasters and things you just can't plan for. And unfortunately, they've landed right here in the middle of an election cycle. But for me, the guy who led the Russiagate investigation, the guy who defeated the bogus insurrection narrative about the National Guard, because I was chief of staff at DOD, I've seen what the deep state can do. And I've seen them utilize the mechanisms of government, FBI, DOJ, and whatnot, for politicized purposes, even the intelligence levers when I was deputy director of national intelligence. So I do believe they are working on something. I mean, just today I saw Christopher Steele, the author of Russiagate, actually wrote an article that Newsweek put on its front page talking about how valuable the Russiagate Steele dossier was and how credible it was. This is 8 years later, and these guys are still at it. And those folks are in charge of the Department of Justice now that authorized that. So I do think something is coming. I don't know if it's going to be public or private.
But how about this? But do you think, Kash, like a surprise has to be a true surprise, something we didn't see coming? I almost feel like the bullets have all been fired. Like if they fire a new bullet, it's almost like a recycled round. Do you know what I mean? Like, okay, we've gone through lawsuits, we've gone through criminal trials, we've gone through Russia hoax, we've gone through all these things. And if you listen to most of the desperate things you'll hear, for example, say on CNN, it's kind of reverting to, Donald Trump is Hitler or idolizes Hitler. It's kind of what I'm getting at. It's in the vein of the threat to democracy theme. And so I do wonder if your October surprise is within that lane, that bullet's been fired. And I hate to keep using that same analogy. That knife has been plunged and it's dull. So I just kind of wonder if there's not something. They've almost exhausted it because I can't come up with any kind of other surprise that wouldn't feel like a dulled attack on Trump.
Well, that's a very astute analysis because you've been following this obviously very carefully for these last 6, 8, 10 years. And I believe you. It's the same government gangsters regurgitating the same themes and operations that they've used, whether it's DOJ or FBI's two-tier system of justice, whether it's the 51 Intel letter, whether it's the insurrection narrative, whether it's now personal name calling, Donald Trump's Hitler, and if you support him, you're Hitler Jr. I think once we've had that conversation, Washington, D.C. is sort of turning to its last rounds, as you say. My fear is these people are not stupid. These people at DOJ and FBI that architected these massive disinformation campaigns to rob us of the truth are now still in charge. And they are going to use the levers of government, in my fear, in a way we won't be able to trace right now until maybe it's too late. And so I do believe they're using the Justice Department, the FBI, but I just can't see it, unfortunately. I wish I could.
Kash Patel with the Trump campaign, former secretary, chief of staff to the Department of Defense here on the Will Cain Show. Okay, you're in North Carolina, Kash. I want to share this with you. So we spent the beginning of our show talking about the way that Kamala Harris is playing with voters. Now, I'm very skeptical of myself, Kash. I try to really, really look in the mirror and achieve some level of self-awareness. And I also have to be aware of the algorithm. Like, what's it feeding me? And a lot of what I'm being fed suggests this is going really poorly for Kamala Harris. Like all of this new interview blitz, this increased exposure, not good. But I'm not sure that my two eyes see the world the way that 300 million times two, 600 million eyes see Kamala Harris. So I look at this, Kash, and I know you probably can't see me while you're on the road in North Carolina, but the Real Clear Politics polling, I don't care about the national poll. That's worthless to me. Battleground states, Donald Trump versus Harris, up 1.5 in Georgia, 0.6 in North Carolina, 0.2 in Pennsylvania, 1.4 in Arizona, and then it has Harris up 0.8 and 0.5 in Wisconsin and Michigan. Now, what's fascinating, Kash, and I'm going to bring this up here in the Will Cain studios here in Dallas. If I bring this up, you can see this. Compare that to 2020 and 2016, okay? State by state, let's just take Pennsylvania. Trump up 0.2. In 2020, Biden was up 7.1 at the same date, October 9th. If you go back to 16, Clinton was up 2.3. Now, I could do this. I just gave you Pennsylvania. I could do Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, Nevada. Every single one of these, regardless of who's up right now, Trump or Harris, it's way, way in Donald Trump's favor compared to the polling at the same time versus Joe Biden in 2020 or even Clinton in 16. The point is, even if Kamala Harris is winning by these polling averages in some states, it's like 6 points less than Biden was. So I'm curious what you guys see as your North Carolina in your internal polling.
Yeah, look, I'll be upfront. I'm not the pollster genius. My polling has always been going around the country and speaking to the American people. And that's what we're doing on this bus tour in Georgia, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, and North Carolina. My focus has been on my home state of Nevada, where we're making monumental efforts to have that victory for Donald Trump for the first time. And what I see is not just people who are part of President Trump's base turning out to these events. I see people coming up to me at every single stop, from Fayetteville here in North Carolina to Rocky Mount to Wilmington and all the other states we've been in, saying I have never participated in the electoral process. I sat the last two out. They're here and they're asking me, how am I going to get engaged, not just vote, engaged in the Trump campaign? So that is the best metric I have that I see on the ground day in and day out on these election tour events that President Trump is putting on. And of course, you see the response at his rallies. So you know the enthusiasm is maintaining the level it needs to. But here's the thing. I don't care what the polls say. I'm going to slug it out till November 5th, 24/7 nonstop. And so is everyone on President Trump's team. We're not leaving anything to chance.
Well, I want to end up talking to you about something that I do think is within your level of understanding and expertise. And that is this story that an Afghan national has been arrested by the FBI. Now, this guy was part of the SIV program, Special Immigrant Visa Program, after the U.S. left Afghanistan. There were people at the time, Kash, I don't know what you might have said. I do remember what I said, and I did sound a bit of a warning. We need to have empathy. We need to help our allies. We need to be careful. What are we doing about these thousands upon thousands of Afghans? Are they properly vetted? That conversation, by the way, Kash, was dismissed as racist. Like it was said, oh my God. But now we have one of the beneficiaries of this program arrested. He lived in Oklahoma. He was attempting to buy 2 AK-47s. He was communicating and presenting himself as ISIS, recruiting other people. And it appears the plan, alleged by FBI, was to have an election day type October 7th style massacre. It looks like he was looking at Washington, D.C. He was kind of searching on the internet about the Capitol and the Washington Monument and those types of things. This is scary, scary stuff, Kash, when you think about, okay, one guy, what else is in America?
Look, you're absolutely right. National security and law enforcement intel, that's sort of my wheelhouse. And when I was chief of staff for the president at DOD, we ran the Afghan withdrawal. And one of the factors we took into consideration during that withdrawal was an intelligence-based withdrawal, not just for the safety of Americans and folks in Afghanistan, but how it looked for the rest of the world. What are we going to do with these folks? Some people, like you said, deserve savings, deserve our empathy, deserve to be brought here lawfully. But we weren't going to shortchange our background checks on these individuals, especially in an area like Afghanistan, which is very hard to conduct because of this exact scenario that we feared. And when you couple that with a disastrous border policy, it's not just this individual that's here. If you go to Mayorkas's own testimony in Congress 2 to 3 months ago, and Chris Wray from the FBI, they've admitted publicly that over 24 foreign terrorist affiliates have entered the country illegally, and they've lost them. That's the 24 they know about. So when you couple that with intentionally poor vetting processes and an intentionally poor border policy, thank God we caught this one individual, Will, but my fear is there's going to be more of these folks and more of these sleeper cells, and we're in a pre-9/11 era all over again because of an intentional politicization of the government. And that's why I think we need to drastically change where we're heading.
I think your fear is very well founded, Kash. I just want to share 2 stories with you. One, there was a story floating around my neighborhood. I live in Dallas, and I didn't see it covered at first, of a woman who had a home invasion. She was tied up. She was robbed. She was single, and she lived in a nice area of Dallas. I mean, if I'm being completely transparent, like she lived a par 5 away from where I live. And now it's being reported by Fox that the men that did this were from Venezuela. Tren de Aragua had been arrested in the United States already on DWI and a few other charges and re-released into the public. And I saw it was covered on America Reports yesterday. That's to your point of coupling with the border. And then the other story is I've had Scott Mann, Green Beret, a lot like Corey Mills, does a lot of help in Operation Pineapple Express and others to help people out. Scott Mann I've seen is out there saying, hey, these sleeper cells that you just referenced, Kash, they're here. And if we're not careful, we're looking at our own October 7th.
No, you're absolutely right. And that is the cataclysmic failure on the national security front. When you bring all of it together, defense, intel, law enforcement, you either prioritize that or you weaponize it and politicize it. President Trump was clear. We're going to take out our enemies. We're going to take out the narco traffickers. We're going to seal the border, and we're going to have full immigration. But Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have literally, look, you can't dodge the fact that they let in at least 10 million people illegally. Whatever your numbers are, that's the bottom number, right? And if you look at the simple mathematics behind that, well, that's going to mean 15,000 murderers, 10,000 rapists, and however many terrorists. And you're right, they're already here. And when Kamala Harris was pressed on that question, would you have done it differently? She said no. She said no. So we're going to continue in that direction. They've admitted it, that that's where they're going, whether it's for votes or whatnot. That's a different conversation. But they don't care, and they're going to continue to give them rooms in the Four Seasons rather than prevent another Laken Riley or prevent another tragedy in our communities from a vicious crime from a violent illegal immigrant. And that's why I'm just charging so hard for President Trump. I've seen him actually prioritize the interests of America. And it's not racist. You're talking to the son of a lawful immigrant whose family waited in line to get here. I want to give that dream, that American dream, to every kid.
He's in North Carolina. He's literally on the road. He's the author of The Plot Against the King, and he's campaigning for Donald Trump. Kash Patel, thank you so much for jumping on with us here today on The Will Cain Show.
Thanks so much, and I hope everybody grabs a copy of my bestseller, Government Gangsters. It's on Amazon at governmentgangsters.com. Let's drain the deep state together.
Government Gangsters. There we go. Government Gangsters right there, Amazon.com, Kash Patel. Thank you so much, Kash. There he goes, continuing down the road in North Carolina. Let's talk about, you and me together, let's do this, because I get excited about entrepreneurial stuff. You know, I want to start. I'm always, man, I hate constant complaint. I hate stuck in the mud. Okay, but I've got an idea. No, I don't. I have the germination of something that could become an idea on how to start the next sports league in America. Next on The Will Cain Show.
This week on the Bret Baier Podcast, join me, Bret Baier, and my all-star panel, Washington Bureau Chief of USA Today, Susan Page, Chief Political Correspondent of the Washington Examiner, Byron York, and Fox News Senior White House Correspondent Peter Doocy, as we discuss the recovery efforts following Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton, and what former President Trump and Vice President Harris have planned for their final weeks on the campaign trail. Available now on FoxNewsPodcast.com or wherever you download your favorite podcasts.
We're Bringing forecasting grit to the gridiron. Fox Weather is storming the field with the risk of weather impact on the hottest NFL matchups all season long. Delivering unmatched insight from the leader in weather news and how the forecast could affect your favorite players. We are taking you right into the end zone with Fox Weather's exclusive weather forecasting technology and the risk of weather impact for every single game of the regular season. Listen to Storming the Field every Friday on FoxNewsPodcasts.com. From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
I'm Janice Dean, Fox News senior meteorologist, and my podcast, the Janice Dean Podcast. Every week, I'll be focusing in on a person, a place, or a thing that deserves your attention because it makes the world a better place. Be sure to subscribe to the Janice Dean Podcast at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And don't forget to spread the sunshine.
America's listening to Fox News.
Small town, community, grassroots, bottom up, maybe relegation, promotion, a new league. Just what sport? It's the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, and the Fox News Facebook page. Always on demand, Apple or Spotify. Over on YouTube, Game of Tunes says this show should live stream on election night. I agree, Game of Tunes. We should stream live on election night. The real question is, and I don't know that it's a question for me. Maybe it's a question for the guys, and then they can go talk to the bosses. Are we capable of pulling off a live stream on election night?
What if we just
You
did
can
this?
barely pull off this show.
We just do this.
I think it's just a more casual, unstructured thing. That would work.
Then what?
That's true.
Then what?
It depends how much you trust us to speak for long periods of time.
No, I think we just keep throwing
You?
guests on.
Zero.
Well, you just book a couple guests.
Yeah.
All right.
Mr. Palpable.
How are you
said
gonna?
I wanted to do it after the Waltz-Vance debate. I'm okay. I give you a month's notice.
Okay.
I would like to live stream on election night. Can we pull it off? With a month's notice, can you do it? What we need to do is tinfoil. You need to get on some guests that you can roll through, right? We have to pick how long we would do it for. Game of Tunes, we would love your input. Like, what do you want? I know a lot of people do this. I know Stephen Crowder, Megyn Kelly, others do this. Like, what do you need from a show that you're going to hang out with on that night, right? And let's see if we can pull that off. And I don't even know if we need to ask the bosses. I'm not in favor of that.
They'll be like, Dan, what are you doing here? Oh, I don't know.
I want to see the.
Just working hard.
I want to see the show on election night.
It's gonna have a few beers in the. It's gonna have a few beers in the back.
Can we drink? Can we drink on election
Speaking of
night?
that,
Drink on the election night show.
Speaking of that, some feedback from the audience on the beer you would order. Let's see. Bosco Lemons It says Black Label. Black Label matters. So does James Germani. Black Label, old, cheap, and great. Is that a beer? I don't know Black Label.
I don't
Is
know.
that just, does that mean the old white can with the black, it says beer on it? Is that one, like in a cartoon? I'm not sure what that is.
Acme.
The red
Acme beer.
says,
I think
John-
they're just talking
Johnny
about
Walker.
I think they're just talking
Yeah.
about Johnny Walker. Yeah,
Oh, yeah. That's your guy,
oh,
Patrick.
we were talking about beer.
Oh, yeah.
I know, but
I like Brandon
I think
Urie.
that works.
Brandon Urie saying Scotch whiskey neat. Yeah, but we're trying to figure out what beer you would order. It's not a whiskey
Right.
test. Okay, it's not. It's a beer test.
can it be though?
I feel drink of your choice.
I think it can be. I think beer is an overall
Okay.
arching term.
I don't think so.
Huh?
Beer is everyman.
Why?
I think. Okay, how about this? It is literally called the beer test. Like electing a president you want to have a beer with.
The
that George
beer
that
test.
was made famous, with George W. Bush, right? If Kamala Harris went out on Colbert last night and he presented the beer test and she said, "I'll take a Chardonnay," how would that go? You know, and I know the answer.
On brand.
Now, if Trump doesn't drink, so if J.D. Vance went out there and he said, "What beer would you like?" and J.D. said, and we won't make him too fancy, we'll just pick if he said, I'll
Mark.
take a Dewar's. I'll take Dewar's. Okay, Scotch or whiskey, Maker's Mark, Dewar's, neat. Do you think that would play as well if he said, "I'll take a Miller Lite"?
I think a lot of the country would think it's too highball. No pun intended.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think I see Tinfoil Pat nodding. I don't think it goes over as well as I'll take a Coors Light.
But what is the everyman beer though? Like, because she picked High Life, is that the everyman beer?
Yes.
No, that's
or is it
hipster,
Bud?
and
Is
you
it
and I
Bud?
both know it.
PBR is hipster.
No,
in J.D. Vance's book.
High Life, which I told you, I love half of a High Life. I love the idea of High Life. But let's be honest for a minute. High Life is wearing a Buffalo Check flannel in Brooklyn. That's what it is, and you know it.
Like my fall
You
Saturdays.
don't go into. It's you. It's you, two-a-days. Like, it's very much in the PBR vein of hipster. How about this? I have been to a lot of dive bars in a lot of small towns in Texas, New Mexico, Montana. You do not often see somebody ordering a High Life. You do not. Okay, it's really a choice of three. It is Coors Light, Bud Light, and Miller Lite.
I think Bud Heavy.
That is every man. Back in the day, it was Bud Heavy, and it was also Coors Yellow Dogs, Yellow Bellies. But I think I love the banquet beer.
I don't know what that is.
The banquet beer? Are you serious right now?
With the commercial Coors.
Original Coors.
The banquet beer.
Original Coors.
Okay.
The banquet beer.
I've had too many Coors Lights. I forgot about that one.
It's too thick.
It's in a yellow can. It's great. I choose that over Bud Heavy. But I think maybe the whole country's just moved to light beer. I don't think as much people, I'm not saying they don't, but they just don't as much order the original full-bodied domestic.
Everybody's counting calories too, so it's like,
yeah.
On this
RP
on this
McMurphy
topic
says,
though,
Yangling at the bar. If you're slumming it, you go with PBR. See, I think again, it's too hipster. Look at Matthew 9:21. Coors Original was it before Sam Elliott transitioned. I don't know what that is. What happened with Sam Elliott?
I think he went a little liberal for some people's liking.
Did he really?
I think so.
Huh. Did he really?
Mm.
Jerry Conrad says Yingling Light or Stella for me. What's up, Tinfoil?
I just think I don't know. I don't think a lot of people, I don't think everyone, it is a every man thing, but I don't think everyone drinks beer. And I think I would rather know what the person drinks. I'd rather know if if the person was a Appletini guy or, a Scotch neat guy. I think it's really important to know
but
what
they don't
that
want
person
you
drinks.
They don't want you to know that. She
But
is
I wanna
not
know.
a Miller High Life girl. You know that she is a Pinot Grigio girl. You know that. And but I agree with you. Like, if it turned out that J.D. Vance was an Appletini guy, oh my God, that would hurt.
I have the answer on
You know,
Vance.
DeSantis is drinking that.
So in his book, he writes, just as he went to law school and he was at his first big law dinner, and he kind of like felt a little out of place at Yale and didn't really know what he was doing. And the waiter asked him like, red or white? He goes, I'll take a red. And then she lists like Cabernet Sauvignon and a couple other options, and he's like, I don't know what that means. I'll just take a red.
Yeah. I don't think that's
Like a
probably the
Budweiser?
case anymore.
Yeah, but that's his character too. He is.
You can't drink wine at a bar if you're a guy. Can't do it.
No, I disagree.
Not a big wine guy.
You can't drink wine at a
wine guy.
bar if you're a dude.
You can. It's a lot more fun than you'd think.
So you can't
Very
can,
homely.
but you can drink
You're gonna
wine
go-
in a bar?
You're going to go belly up to a bar and say,
drink-
give me a red wine?
No way. Can't do it.
I've done it at my hometown bar a couple times.
Of course
when I
you
go
have.
back. It's like a nice little feeling.
I've been to that bar.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. I've been there. I was there last weekend.
All right. There is a new investment group interested in, again, reforming college football. Similar to the story we told you last week. These are big hitters, again, investors, billionaires who want to create a new super league in college football. This would separate, I believe, about 70 of the biggest programs from the rest of the NCAA and create a super league. In other news, because my version of going up to a bar and ordering red wine is reading about European soccer, because I like to keep up with European soccer. The second most famous European soccer coach to Pep Guardiola is a guy named Jurgen Klopp. He's from Germany, and he just took a brand new job as head of global soccer at Red Bulls. Now, Red Bull is a franchise corporate soccer model that has teams in Germany, Austria, and New York. And there was a line in the article I was reading where it said Germans particularly hate Red Bull, not the drink, the corporate soccer program. And I was like, that's interesting. I didn't know that. It's very controversial. Why? And it said because Germans prize authenticity and the idea of fan ownership of a team. And they don't like the corporatized version of sports. And that resonated with me. I was watching Chiefs Saints on Monday night, and I was realizing almost to myself one of the reasons I still love sports so much, because it's one of the last remaining vestiges of the idea of the city-state. Like, I love, this, accents and regionalism. I love unique flavors, and I want America to retain some, honestly, like, city-state coalition that we all come under the banner of the Stars and Stripes. And sitting there watching Kansas City take on New Orleans, and those two, fan bases, cities, squaring off against one another, I just find that inherently appealing, enthusiastic, and passionate. And it got me thinking about how much has been lost in modern American sports as we, as capitalism will do, strive towards this corporatism that is now threatening college football. If you think about it, college football is the last remaining fort. It's the holdout. It's the Alamo when it comes to fan passion in sports. There's no big billionaire that you can identify. I know there are boosters, but nobody owns the Texas Longhorns. Nobody owns the Florida State Seminoles, at least not officially. And as a consequence, it feels like it's ours. Like it's ours. Whoever our is, obviously the student body, the alumni, the greater fan base. And there's a deepened passion connection when something is ours. And that's what we're losing and what we will soon lose. We're in the process of losing when it comes to college football. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's degrees of this. Like, obviously, I still root for the Cowboys and the Mavericks and the Rangers because they're mine. That's my city. That's my city-state. Those are my teams. That's who I grew up with. But it doesn't escape me that it's Jerry Jones' team, not my Dallas Cowboys. It feels less so when it's the Texas Longhorns. It doesn't feel like, Red McCombs, rest in peace, Texas Longhorns. It feels like my Texas Longhorns. But still, I can recognize that is lessening. And younger generations don't feel the same way. They'll as readily root for the Golden State Warriors as the Dallas Mavericks, having grown up in Frisco, Texas. There's, kids rooting for whatever team. Born here, rooting for the Pittsburgh Steelers everywhere you go. And it does offend me. But it made me think about if the currency in sports, at least to some degree, is investment, okay? I get competition, high-level play, unscripted drama. But at some level, if it's investment, is there not an opportunity to create community investment in sports at a much lower level? And honestly, this be entrepreneurial. I turn back to you guys in New York. So we talked about this a little bit, and the best example to me is high school football. Like, that retains the sense of community. Now, not every community turns out for every team, meaning, do you go to the games even if you have no kid on the team? When I was growing up, that's the way it was. You went to the game no matter what. Like, my parents and I and my brothers and sister, we went to the game, and none of us were in high school. You know what I mean? It's just what you did on Friday night. And that's awesome. Like, that's a whole nother level of passion and investment. And that's how English football, all those, by the way, German, this is where this whole idea popped into my head. That's where it all started. Like, they had community soccer teams, right? That evolved over a century, some of them, into big business. But they love their community team, and it turns out. And that's exactly what we're losing here in America. And I guess what they're losing as well over there in Europe. And it just kind of makes me think, is there not an entrepreneurial opportunity on the bottom side? You know what I mean? Like, you could tell me the answer is no. I'm the guy who was invested in community newspapers, right? I used to own small town newspapers because they were a sign of community. Well, they're dying like everything else. And now we all read the same news. We all read the same big national news. But I just have to think, like, even if you're trying to do a business and say I'm Coors Light. Okay, I can hit a lot of people by, it's actually Miller Lite with the Cowboys, right? They sponsor the Cowboys. Hit a lot of people. And I don't think beer is definitely the answer when it comes to sports. It's just an easily accessible answer. But, like, what kind of connection could Miller Lite make by investing in true community sports? I'm hesitant to say a high school team, but you know what I mean? If we had teams that only draw 1,000 people, right? 1,000 people to a game. But your depth of connection is so much deeper than what washes over you in a broadcast of 10 million. I just don't, and I don't know what the sport is.
Lacrosse.
You know, I don't know. Maybe. Lacrosse is certainly getting bigger down here in Texas now. It's growing nationwide. You know, I know a guy who's starting a community soccer league. It's under USL, which is under MLS, in little towns. I'm like, how are you going to make it business-wise? And it's not a big soccer culture in Sherman, Texas, but they're trying. And it makes me wonder, like, there's something. It's got to be something that still, sports-wise, brings a community together that isn't 100% a corporate enterprise.
But I think that's the exact thing that changes the game is money. That's why the higher level you get, the less community there is, because people stop caring about the millionaires that are making money. So they are more into the high school player, the college player, because if you bring more money into it, you lose love. I think college football, bringing money into it, NIL and all that, is taking some of the love right out of it.
Yeah, I just wonder what the sport would be. And it's like, can you, at some point, as we as a society and economy continue to become monolithic, there's got to be an opportunity at a lower level, and I'm not saying to compete or replace the NFL or anything like that, but I just don't think the future is all of us watching LeBron, all of us watching the Cowboys, all of us watching Fox or CNN. And the answer is we're all scrolling separate things. We do know that. That's what's happening. It's tailored to our interests. But I just have to wonder if there's not something around the concept of community. Like, I don't know, man. Like, maybe it is lacrosse. I can't believe it would be lacrosse.
Pickleball.
I don't know.
Is that a worse answer?
Yeah, pickleball. Someone just said that
That's
in
a
the chat.
participation sport. That's a participation
like tennis,
sport.
you can't
I'm
do
talking about a
tennis.
viewership
Yeah.
sport.
Golf you can't do. Hockey's a big one. I mean, so I have a different experience.
Golf?
Football's not like that for me up here growing up, high school football. It's hockey up here for us is that way, like the weekend thing, you know, even if you're not playing.
The whole community turns out for the hockey
Turns
game?
out for hockey. That's what it is. Connecticut, Massachusetts.
What hockey team? The high school team?
High school
what
teams.
Team?
Yeah, high school teams and college. Like I grew up around Yale. We had a great hockey team, Quinnipiac. Everyone turns out for that. Even if you didn't go to the school or the high school, you still go. It's like Texas football for us.
You know, and by the way, around Texas football, there is an economic ecosystem. You know, there is like coverage, websites, and back even when on TV, it's like who covered the high school football games. I just, obviously it has to match a community's passion. And I mean, I don't know that lacrosse achieves the level of passion necessary to even survive at a grassroots level. I as much as I love it, I don't think you can replicate European soccer model here because I don't think the passion is there. But there's got to be something.
Golf.
I even thought about with rodeo, to be honest. I love community rodeos. I do. Like, I would rather go to the community rodeo than a massive event at Madison Square Garden. I would rather go watch a bunch of dudes. I went to the Cody Rodeo, Cody, Wyoming Rodeo. It's my favorite one I've ever been to. I loved it. But maybe it's also like, well, Will, you're trying to take something that is small in community and turn it into a business, and that is the anachronism.
You got the animal
That's the
thing
anachronism.
too. People don't like that as much.
I don't want those people.
Hmm.
What are you talking about? Talking about people that think that's animal abuse?
Yeah.
The Brooklyn people?
I'm just saying nationally, like if you try to do community level. I'm just saying.
I know it's wide-ranging and without an answer, but I wish there was an answer because I would like to start that league. Joseph Bull says, conservatives, why isn't Harris visiting the South? Also conservatives, why is Harris inserting herself? That's his criticism of, I guess, people wondering where Harris is when it comes to hurricane relief. Linda Champion on YouTube says, will displaced people be allowed to vote in the devastated states? That logistical issue is going to be, I do think that's a conversation.
It's a problem.
Yeah, like Western Carolina and now in Florida. Like, if you're out of your home, how do you even go about finding where you go to vote? You don't go to your home the next day if it's flooded to 15 feet. All right. What's up, Tinfoil? Who's on the show tomorrow, Tinfoil, by the way?
I don't know. It's going to be David Marcus and then somebody else. I'm not really sure yet. So I was saving a spot for Congressman Waltz, but he's going to do next Monday. So
we had Condoleezza Rice walk by earlier.
Oh, go see if she wants to.
So if you don't know what's on the show tomorrow, I don't feel real good about a live stream on election night.
Oh, no. Look, I have most of next week already scheduled down. I mean, like, we're looking,
We'll do Patrick's top 5 conspiracy theories on election night.
No, we will not.
They'll love it.
No,
They'll love it.
All right. That's going to do it for us today here on the Will Cain Show. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time, same place. I'll see you again next time.